This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. Thank you for staying with us. We're interrogating the change of tact in terms of the vaccination, but also taking a look at some of the issues around COVID that emanated throughout the week. One of them being the high positivity rate that we recorded across the week, one of the highest being 22%. Grim statistics actually showing that perhaps community transmission is at an even higher level. Exactly when people who might not be tested are walking around with the virus. But be that as it may, the ongoing vaccination drive has expanded its scope. People above 58 years are actually encouraged to go and get the jab in the ongoing phase 1 of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine jab. Professor Gitile Naituli, your take on this, and I'd like you to belabor the point on the balancing, because we have an upsurge in terms of positivity rate, but the economy definitely needs to be catered for as well. Talk to us about this.
Let me just be categorical that the country actually can't afford a total lockdown. Even this government is not in a position to distribute any food. It is already suffering serious financial issues. But the government is quite capable of enforcing the capture proposals, except I want to be careful with even inter-county restriction of inter-county also, because that will seriously undermine the economy. But a very aggressive enforcement of Ministry of Health protocols can really assist. So all those recommendations, those capture recommendations, I'm absolutely in support of them. The government relaxed. We started having these politicians moving around without masks. They sent a very wrong message to the populace. So I don't know whether these proposals were presented to the Ministry of Health, but I think the national government needs to up its game because this disease is dangerous and it has shown that it can really hurt. Now about the vaccine, I think people need to understand that these vaccines actually, they were 50 years in developing. They are using a new technology. It's called mRNA, messenger RNA, ribonucleic acid technology. It's just that the COVID came and gave the scientists an opportunity now to bring it to the market.
Okay.
But then developing the vaccine has taken long, so there's no reason for people not to have faith in it.
Okay. Well said. Mark Bichachi, your take on perhaps the possibility of tougher, stringent measures in order to control the spread of COVID-19 within the population?
Well, you know, let me tell you something. For me, I think a lockdown is imminent. Not imminent, it should definitely play, simply because the rate of positivity we're seeing, especially in Nairobi, is too high. But even worse is the responsibility, the personal responsibility, the wearing of masks, the sanitization, the social distancing is non-existent. If we are very honest with ourselves, why Nairobi is suffering so much, and that's because we are simply not keeping COVID protocols. And I think very soon we'll give the government no choice than to lock us down, because we'll be
Well, we seem to have lost that connection with Mark Bichachi. Perhaps I can bring in Kasim Tandaza briefly. All right, we seem to have reestablished. Okay, Kasim Tandaza, kindly continue. And also bearing in mind that just recently I saw in the papers that Coast, specifically Mombasa, didn't seem to be struggling with hospital beds in terms of the availability of oxygen and ICU beds to fight the ongoing coronavirus. Talk to us about the possibility of stringent measures being put.
Well, I think here we need to have a balance. And as PMG had initially alluded, that in those slums where people are really concentrated, where even maintaining social distancing is a problem, what will happen when you lock these people down? And already you are having people who are infected, who are already corona positive, though not tested, and now you confine them into that particular area, what will exactly happen? Will you be preventing it, or you will actually be accelerating the spread of that corona within that environment? So to me, the issue of lockdown is not an option for the government to take because of the other effects that it will have. You know, at one point, one will say, if you lock him up and he doesn't have any means of his daily survival, he would rather say, I would rather die of COVID than die of hunger, you know. And we know very well the government is not in a position to provide for its citizens food rations, let alone other things. Just the food rations, because the basic need for any human being survival is food. Without food, even if you are corona negative, you're still going to suffer and die anyway. So, and we know the government can't do that. PMG talked about locking down totally and the government saving the extras and distributing. We know that can't happen. And even if it was to be attempted, the other monster will come in terms of corruption, the logistics. People will not receive whatever will have been saved in court for the purposes of providing. So, to me, stringent measures, yes, but I think more of media campaign, more of us leaders. I really try to avoid the word politicians because I think a professor went to say that politicians went around, and even politicians went around. I think it's a question of leaders, all leaders, not just politicians. If leaders, me included and others, went out there and told our people vigorously, because I insist, there are some people who believe in their local leaderships, tell them that now it's high time to enforce. And I wouldn't want to use the beauty, but right now it's like in every village, unlike previously, where we said, Ikoapi, have you seen somebody? Have you had anybody who has died of COVID? Now it's like in every village, there is now an example, sure, that this is now real. I think that is the way to go. More enlightenment to the public, especially from the leaders who are trusted, not only leaders at the political level, but leaders up to the village levels. The wazee wa nyumba kumi, the village elders, and all the chiefs given this information. And I'll say this 1,000 times. There is no need for going for an expensive option when the cheaper one is there. Let's just go back to the basics and follow them. Otherwise, restricting movement or putting stringent measures, they can be there on paper. In any case, even when we are having the lockdown from 6 to 6 initially, people were still moving. And I think that time it was only that the wave was not there. But I don't think really we observed them at that particular instance to say that that was what prevented the spiking of this corona. So to me, education is key, apart from just the stringent measures, because the stringent measures need enforcement, which we don't seem to be having the capacity. The Kenyans don't seem to appreciate those ones. But I believe with more information, more enlightenment, especially from the leaders, from our medics, and any other person taking responsibility, it should be the long way to go.
Okay, Professor, as we put this matter to rest, counties being termed as the weak link in this fight against COVID-19. Health is a devolved function. Just recently, we saw a couple of governors clamor for diversion of funds from fighting or mitigating the effects of desert locusts and enhancing devolution to actually these funds to be diverted towards fighting COVID-19. Talk to us about the preparation of counties.
Counties have always been the weak link in all the matters because it was a mistake, in my opinion, to have developed health. They were given money without supervision because the money initially, those in billions, the counties were given, the instruction from national government should have been strictly use this money to improve your bed capacity, your ICU capacity. That was not done. So most counties went and fumigated the markets, probably just on the paper. Given our levels of corruption and the lack of integrity, it was wrong to just push the money to the counties because their level of corruption is very well known. So I think even now, as we grumble now with the third wave, the counties are still letting us down. The one unfortunate thing about this country is when a mistake is made, we are too slow in correcting it. I had expected the BMBI to bring back Herod to the national government, because the counties have proved that they are not able to manage this particular docket. So I don't know what we can do actually to move the counties. There was a limit for 300 beds. If you do a survey right now, you will find very few counties have 300 beds. In fact, there was a nasty example where the parliamentary committee, I think the Senate, only held the first and an hospital in Isiolo, where the governor and borrowed beds from a private hospital, pretending that he has bought them, and then after the press had seen them, they were taken back. Nothing was never followed, nothing happened. If that happens in serious societies, the governor would be out of office today. So given our laxity, even in enforcing the simplest of transgressions, I think we have a lot to do to make these counties support the national government in terms of improving health and dealing with this pandemic.
Okay, we'll definitely continue monitoring the state of affairs right there. But gentlemen, let's cross over to some political developments that played out this particular week. Well, it seems the politics of honoring pre-election arrangements doesn't seem to exist, at least according to the now defunct NASA, as many might argue, even as Malala was actually removed from leadership position as the deputy minority leader in the Senate, replaced by who was replaced by a coastal senator right there. And this definitely shows some of the political intrigues playing out. Let me just pick the mind of Mark Bichachi. We seem to have reestablished a connection with him. Talk to us about ODM and the NASA coalition. I know ODM members of parliament argue that this NASA coalition is dead and are definitely moving away from it. But in terms of honoring pre-election arrangements, and we're seeing a lot of political maneuvering happening right now in terms of coalitions as well. What say you about this, whatever played out in the Senate this week?
Well, there are two things that I would like to remind our political class. Number one, you cannot sign a contract to which you are not the enforcer. What I mean is this, that you cannot say that Raila Odinga is not going to be a candidate in the next election, so says this contract, and yet you find a situation where the members of his political party might want him to run, or indeed his own will might want him to run. Also, how do you enforce the contract? If Raila Odinga chooses to run, what will NASA do other than throw a tantrum? Secondly, we have a situation where ODM has been almost the big brother of this NASA coalition from the beginning. It has the most numbers in Senate, the most numbers in Parliament, and the other members of NASA seemed to be the children suckling at ODM's udder. And so there is also the reality that these other political parties and political players are seeking to find relevance. And how do you find relevance? You find relevance by forming your own coalition, then you go back to discuss with the same ODM. So this is all expected, because I am very sure all the politicians know that it is very hard to run for presidential office in this country without a coalition. So we're going to see a lot of formations, we're going to see a lot of blaming of each other, but I'm going to tell you for free, unless power is won, coalitions naturally break down. Coalitions exist when people have one office. But when you don't win, it is very hard to enforce those particular arrangements. But I can assure you, from now until probably April of next year, you will hear of coalitions, rumors of coalitions, new coalitions, betrayals of the coalitions, and betrayers of the other coalition. So this is, we are discussing how monkeys will behave before the bananas are settled in their stomachs. There will be a lot of cacophony, I've said before, so expect it to continue. Musical chairs, katambe, as they say in Swahili.
Interesting. Briefly, Bichachi, just 1 minute. Your take on the coalition we're seeing playing out, the One Kenya Alliance, where the critics might argue that these are individuals who are struggling for political survival. And what do you respond to that?
Well, it is true. It is obvious that Kalonzo Musyoka's fortunes seemed to have been dwindling. You remember Wetangula was almost kicked out of his own party, and some argue that there are two parties now. We know Mudavadi, of course, was coming from a history of 2013, having gotten about 400,000 votes, as Kasim once corrected me. And so he's a man who knows that he needs a coalition to make it. And they are very clever in that perspective, because you come together and then you form a solid coalition, and that gives you a space to negotiate with the big boys. And the big boys are two, which is William Ruto and Raila Odinga. Hakuna mtu mwingine. So they're just positioning themselves to have space on the table, but this will continue.
Well, Kasim Tandaza, what say you about questions that might arise around the political clout around One Kenya Alliance, your party leader being a member?
Thank you. I was personally there yesterday at Serena when we were unveiling the One Kenya Alliance.
Yes.
And it actually gives a lot of hope to this country. Mark, coalitions, the history of MOUs and coalitions in this country has not been very good. It's not only when they lose that they disintegrate. Remember about the NAC coalition, which won. But what happened after that? People don't honor those MOUs. And I think this goes into the integrity of the leaders that we have, and ultimately to the general Kenyans, that we don't seem to really move around with integrity, that if I make this this proposal, we agree with the professor that we are going to do this, I do it on paper, I do it through just talking to him, but deep down inside me, I know I'm for something else. And I think this comes into the whole integrity question about this country. Otherwise, we've come to learn that people don't honor MOUs, they don't honor those coalition agreements, and probably this is us Kenyans. We need to sort this problem out. But for the One Kenya Alliance, I think this is the way to go. I still agree with Mark that there will be so many coalitions coming up. Remember, it is also in this week that we saw our three governors from Coast, those whose terms are coming to an end, also trying, not only trying, but believe they are coming together, also shows that there could be some form of agreement at the political stage from the coastal region up to that level of seeing what alliance again to join.
Okay.
But I will say that my thoughts on going forward is that these alliances or these coalitions, whatever may be, going forward, let them be of policies, not be of tribal kingpins or of just for the purposes of getting power, but to get like-minded people on policies, and those policies mainly based on helping this country and post-COVID trying to resuscitate the economy of this country, because the ordinary mwananchi down there, Mark has just said that you can get a COVID jab at $70. $70 translates to 7,000 Kenya shillings. 7,000 Kenya shillings, the majority of Kenyans cannot get that even in a month. So that is how bad this economy is. And
okay.
That's where our focus will be.
Kasim Tandaza, I just want to bounce on your thoughts, because you mentioned this alliances should be about the policies that actually bring these individuals together. Critics of the One Kenya Alliance seem to allude that these are regional kingpins who seek to lock out certain individuals from their regions, hence why they're coming together. How do you respond to that?
That can't be true, Jesse, because remember, these are politicians who have been there, and nobody has ever been refused to be a politician or to be a leader, and that is why I'm here. I'm a first-time member of parliament, and fought all the way. I stood for this position in 2007. I didn't manage, but thank God I'm here. So at this point, then you cannot call me a kingpin of Matuga or a tribal kingpin of Matuga. And whether we like it or not, our politics of this country, right from independence, we've had leaders from their regions. And unfortunately, the greatest support of any leader comes from that region. In any case, those are the people who know you best anyway. So I don't think there's anything wrong in that.
Okay.
But for me, the fact that there were 4 yesterday, I know my prayer while I was there, not as representing a kingpin, of course, but to me, for One Kenya Alliance, the way to go is for them to have more regions coming in, more political leaders joining in. And for this matter, I don't think we can rule out anybody that you are saying we are locking somebody out. At one point, if the policies of the person you are referring to are aligned to the policies of One Kenya, why not join? Me, I'm not ruling anybody out.
All right, let me bring in...
The current leaders of One Kenya have ruled anybody out that they can't work with so and so. For as long as they concur on the policies and the greater good.
So it's all about policies and the greater good. Definitely, I'll get to interrogate you later on the emergence of a strong regional alliance, quote unquote, in the coast region. But PMG Njuguna, I'd like your take on that, not just the One Kenya Alliance, but we saw a lot of movement within the Jubilee Party last week, crossing over to this week, the recommendations by NMC to NEC to oust the deputy party leader. Talk to us about the character of Jubilee. Do you believe Jubilee has lost its character? Because I believe, as a person who believes in political institutions, there should be room for divergent views within the party, and you should be able to accommodate this. When it reaches to a point that this doesn't seem to be the case, people might ask questions around the character. Talk to us about this. What's your take?
Thank you very much. With your apology, this country should ask itself, why is there a lockdown in Britain, in Americas, and any other country? Somebody has to think twice about rocking this country. It has to. Then, politics of this country is what people continue saying. The forest is the same, but the monkeys are different. What we are seeing now will come when there is always when you have got a transition. Look at the transition process of this country. When Moi was going home, when Jomo Kenyatta was going home, when Kibaki was going home, when Uhuru is going home, there is always these new foundations that claim to know better, that claims they are going to do better, but the same people who have been unable to do anything. What is the difference? Where I have seen these people, when you Kenya one, those people have not been one in their own community. How would they call a Kenya one without being one in their own community? If you cannot organize your community, how can you organize this country? Like Bichacha said, these people are realigning themselves. They will either go to Ruto or Uhuru. Or Ruto, Raila. They are trying to position themselves because the two giants are there, Raila and Ruto. Both of them have said there is a likelihood. I listened to the brother of Raila, who said it can happen. I have listened to Ruto last night. He said it is not impossible. So that, where will they go? If Raila decides to team up with Ruto, and I have always believed that is going to happen, where will they go? That is the issue. Number two is that parties are a private members club.
Okay.
You are admitted at their own terms. The terms, the Mheshimiwa is in a party. It is a private members club. Jubilee is a private members club. It has got its own rules and regulations. By the way, in my history of reading politics and listening to politics, I haven't seen a very tolerant party like Jubilee. I have not seen more democratic party than Jubilee. Last time, I never go to political parties. I always go for elections as an independent candidate. I don't like parties because I don't like it dictated in the way I think and in the way I want to believe in things and I want to do things. So that Jubilee may be called in any other language, but to me, right now, it's the most democratic party.
But you just mentioned it's been run like a private club.
It's a private club, but democratic party within itself. How many people have been removed from the party in Jubilee? Just the other day, only one. So far, it's one that have been removed. Look at all other parties, how they have removed their members or they exited from that club.
All right.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Look at it that way.
Okay, your point is
come in any other form.
Okay.
But again, it is not better than any other. Because only a vehicle. The mistake that has been done is confusing the party with the constitution. The constitution of Kenya, there is nowhere there is a reference for Jubilee. There is nowhere the reference for ODM.
Okay.
And let me tell you something. Mheshimiwa is talking about policy. What policy? Look at the ODM manifesto. Look at KANU manifesto. Look at Jubilee manifesto. Look, I have not seen ODA manifesto, but from the Hazara and bottom-up economy, you can say it is just one and the same thing.
Okay.
And then look at the Constitution of Kenya. Look at Article 40 of the Constitution, economic and social right. Look at Article 50 and 53, educational rights and fair administrative action. Look at Article 40, right to property. Look at Article 25 and 27, equity and equality, and right to life. What they quote is the Constitution. They manufacture their party policies and manifestos looking at the Constitution. What should happen is a strategy now for a joint, because I also want to believe in negotiated democracy. Because without the negotiated democracy, then the winner takes it all home.
All right.
Is a completely dangerous thing. So that they must not continue cheating us that they are going to become with new policies. No party is going to come with anything new other than what is the Constitution. That is what I'm also saying. Laila Amolo Odinga cannot give anything outside the Constitution or without the BBI. Ruto cannot give this country anything outside BBI.
All right,
because
PMG.
The policies that they would want to
allow us to also get the views of other panelists as well. I think your point is definitely across in terms of the nature of the political landscape and the political parties in the country. Professor, it's been a while since you've last talked. To give us your take on perhaps the recent developments. Perhaps PMG has highlighted what we had Deputy President William Ruto allude to, impossibilities. Nothing is impossible in politics. Talk to us about this.
First, let me say that there is absolutely nothing to admire by our leaders crafting agreements and then refusing to honor those agreements later. They are giving the country the burden of not being able to trust each other in the future. So there is nothing to admire there, and that cannot be termed politics, because politics that lacks integrity, politics that lacks foresight of the future is not politics. It's destructive. So there is nothing to admire in all these broken promises, whether they were broken in Tack, whether they are now being broken in Jubilee. Absolutely nothing to admire, and let's settle that. Because we need to be reasonable people. We need to be people of integrity. We need to be people whose want is law. The want is trusted. When you tell me something, I know you mean it. And sometimes we don't even have to write it down.
Okay.
So there's a problem there. Now, the other thing is I want to say here, and I know usually I'm careful. This one I may actually annoy some people. I actually believe that the next contest is going to be between Ruto and the Mudavadi. I know, I'm saying that very carefully. One person, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one in this country, who actually believes that while the handshake saved the country and then gave us peace, it damaged Raila's standing nationally. His supporters always saw him as a liberator, somebody who was going to move them from this misery of lack of political direction into somewhere. He joined us in the lack of direction. Raila is now one of us. And being one of us, leaves fresh thinking now to Ruto and to Mundavadi corner. This is a prediction I'm making. And I'm making it very deliberately because, I mean, I've supported Raila many times myself.
So in one way or the other, you think the new alliance that Mudavadi is part of might shake the political scene?
That new alliance, you need to watch it carefully. You cannot afford to dismiss it if you want to, you are seeking political power.
But many might also argue, let me bring in Mark Bichachi, many might also argue that ruling out Raila Odinga is definitely, you're
no,
not
I did not rule him out. I've not ruled out Raila Odinga.
Yes.
I'm just saying the way the things have evolved so far. They evolved in such a way that the new alliance may very well be strong enough to face Ruto with or without Raila in the equation.
Well, that's interesting to note. Mark Bichachi, your final take. I'll give you 1 minute so I can also get our other panelists' views on this particular matter.
The question on the Kenyan political landscape is a very simple one. Is a coalition formed to be against Ruto or a coalition formed on principles? The second question is this: can Ruto win friends without a pass? If he lost his wallet, would he still have the political confidence he has? Lastly, Kenyans must be careful. We are indeed seeing a glimmer of hope against the COVID-19 pandemic, but there remains a dark shadow, and that shadow is called ignorance. That shadow is called fake news, and that shadow is called being careless. Be careful that you're not caught under that shadow.
Well, interesting sentiments right there. Kasim Tandaza, your take on what we're just discussing, but you can also give us your final take on the emergence of a strong regional alliance, even as President Uhuru Kenyatta met 3 governors in State House just yesterday. What say you about this?
I would want to say this with a lot of respect to the right Honorable Raila Odinga. He's done so much for this country on fighting for the space that some of us are enjoying right now. But it should also be very clear that in any journey, there's a point where you will have to let others take up the baton and take it further. You cannot be moving with the baton all along. That can't happen. And even it has been proved right now that his influence generally all over the country is going down. We don't have to repeat this. We've just seen what has been happening in the Western region, which for a long time, it has been his bedroom, so to speak. We have seen this happening in Coast region, where for a long time, the right Honorable Raila Odinga Coast has been his bedroom, but we've seen the position right now, that wave, that enthusiasm is not there. It is going down. That is a reality, and you have to accept that. And that now gives the One Kenya Alliance that space now to actually show the direction for these Kenyans. And it's not just about the One Kenya Alliance, the coastal region, so to speak. And I'm glad that you referred to ours as a region, not as the tribes, as others would want to bring us down. The coastal region also is coming up, and it's taking that space rightfully to champion for the betterment, for the well-being of the region. And that is why I'm really into it. Just as at the national level, we want One Kenya, that One Kenya should be built from the different regions enjoying the benefits of that one Kenya.
All right, Kasim, due to interest of time, allow us to end on that particular note. We'll definitely get to share more thoughts as more observations are noted, as we see more political alignments and realignments. Gentlemen, many thanks for your time. Of course, we're joined in studio, Professor Gitile Naituli, who's a former NCIC commissioner. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Mark Bichachi as well, via way of Zoom, communication strategist. Also joined by Kasim Tandaza Matuga, Member of Parliament, as well as PMG Njuguna. We definitely appreciate your input right here.